So with this Phantom build, it's the end of the story. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies and welcome to part 20 of the Tamiya 1/48 scale Phantom build. This is a Phantom and where it's up to, pretty much completed. So from the last section, if I move down there, you'll probably be able to see from a t-shirt, we've got the canopies, they're all mounted open. I've got the refueling probe, you might be able to see from that angle, maybe. Be able to see from the overhead camera. I've got the refueling probe right there. And we've got the landing, what do you call that? Access ladder, I guess, to the cockpit. That's been glued on there as well. I've got the canopies in place there, just rough sub-assemblies, haven't glued them in yet. So just to get the basic look and make sure everything aligned well. Got a lot of the wash done across the top, also on the base. Just needs a bit of cleaning up. So this being part 20, this is going to be the final video we do for the build. It's going to need a bit more work, so I'll do the finer finessing off camera. It's just going to be using exactly the same techniques I've already used here. It's just going to clean up. You see these are still very smeary. I'll just be cleaning it up and making the detail a little crisper with the wash. Now I've got the parts here as well. I'll keep them off for the moment now as well, but I will glue on the wheels. And then the clear parts, I'll be putting them when I finessed up everything, and I'll be using clear canopy glue for that as well. All right, so what I'll do now is we'll glue on the undercarriage first. And as it's setting, I can start cleaning up some of this base wash that's all smeary and continue on from there. Okay, this, actually, I need to take off this canopy, otherwise they're gonna break off. All right, so it just comes off. It's amazing how they come off so cleanly. The fit is really good. Now with the canopies, I've also left the seam lines in them. So most canopies on aircraft, there'll be a seam line in the center from the mold, where the mold has gone through the sides. And usually you'll just use some really fine sandpaper, and some polishing compound to polish that out. But I'm just gonna leave them in there because the whole idea of this build was to see what it'll look like with hardly any cleaning up. And the lines are actually pretty clear, because Tamiya do expect some beginners to be building these, and they won't be doing all the sanding and such. And even without it, it still looks pretty good. Right, let's just take out this section here. Okay, the seats are probably going to be okay. I haven't glued in the seats yet either. They've got a bayonet mount that mounts them onto the back there, but I'm just going to rest this on its back. I think they should be okay. Yeah, that looks okay. Just so I can access the undercarriage. Okay, so let me just put on my mag visors here so I can see what I'm doing. All right, let's do the front first. Let's get these two little wheels, put them on and see what it looks like. Now the shafts are actually tapered, so when you push them on, they're actually only going to sit in a particular orientation, which means they're going to be absolutely straight. So I've got them in there now dry, and if I can hold them on the right angle, you can see them there. They're really pretty straight. I don't need to do much work at all. Some of the earlier designs used to be a straight shaft, and that's where there could have been some wobble involved, and they never aligned. But being tapered, they're forcing them to go in straight. Okay, so what I'm going to do is apply a little bit of glue on the shafts first. This will soften the surface. Slide the wheels on. Like that, and then I'm going to apply a little bit more glue on the actual seam, and this is going with capillary action. Alright, so they're going to be pretty permanent. Okay, just give it a little bit of squeeze. And as I'm doing that, there's actually no sideways play at all. Okay, being tapered, they're just being held in place perfectly. All right, let's spin this around and we'll do the main undercarriage. There's these two fellas, let's see what the looks like with them. Again, it's tapered. This one's going to be a little bit loose because that's the one I broke and repaired, and I won't be fixing that into place until the wheels are glued on, and I'll make sure the alignment is perfect. Okay, they look pretty good, I think. So we'll do exactly the same thing. I'm going to apply some glue onto the shaft. It's all the way around. Press them on. And now a bit more glue on the shaft itself to the wheel. Okay, good stuff. All right, so we've got wheels on now. Now I'm going to keep it resting on its back while the glue sets. And while that's happening, I'll be able to access this part, which is still really smeary. Okay, so let's just get... I think what I'll do is I'll start using some of this tissue. This is actually the God Hand palette tissue. It's they call it a brush care sheet. So you use it like a blotting type paper. It's a fiber which is very tightly weaved, so it's not going to leave fur on whatever you apply it. So if you're brushing off your excess paint on this with your brush, it's going to pick up any dust or such. But I'm going to use this as actually the wiping cloth across the surface. I'm going to put a little bit of a thinner onto this, and then we'll be able to cover a much larger area as I'm doing like that than a cotton wool bud, because cotton wool bud's being curved, it has a very narrow contact patch. So hopefully with this, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is drop in my brush, just clean it off. All right, so I'm just going to brush some across the surface. You don't need a lot of thinner. And this is only going to contact the high sections that I want to clean off. Alternatively, you could cut off little patches and use tweezers. So if you cut off patches, use the tweezers to rub around. That'll help you get into some of the nooks and crannies. All right, so I'm going to start wiping across the top here. So immediately it's already taking a lot of the top off, and you can see it just collecting on the surface there. And it's left all the very deep detail in there. And because there's not a lot of thinner on this, it's only on the surface, it's not removing any of the deep rivet detail. All that wash is still in there. And maybe from there you can just see how clean it's come up. Simply because we're using a wider area on this tissue. Now, I can't get all the way into the insides here. I will be able to get to it with the tweezers later and a piece of this cloth. But it's made a huge difference. Alright, so I'm just going to do this all the way around. Just have to be careful that you don't get it snagged on sharp edges. Now if it does get really difficult, we can always go back to our cotton wool, or cotton bud I should say. And this is part of the finessing. So it's slow going. And after I do this, I will be touching up some of these parts that have been missed as well. Probably feeling a bit dry now. I'll put some more thinner on here. Oop. Put this back there. Alright, so I'll fold this around. And I'll get my tweezers into here. Probably going to be better if I did cut this a little bit, but this should help me get into some of these nooks and crannies. Actually, it probably works better like this for the moment. Okay, I think the glue's set on these wheels. Let's see how it sits on the bench here. It's all pretty stable. All looks pretty good. Okay, I'm just going to get myself some scissors. I'm going to cut up this section of brush care sheet. Okay, so I got a couple of little strips here, and I use this with my tweezers. So let's get some thinner onto this. Now this brush care sheet is really absorbent. Now if you use normal blotting type paper, you probably won't need to apply as much. The thing is, this is very spongy. So quite often you can use this as a base for your wet palette as well. It holds the moisture very well. So I can load this up, a bit more thinner. Okay, and then we'll apply it here. And start rubbing it back. And see how you can get right up into the panel joins there, just on the wing root there. Over here on the folded section as well. You can just see how it's been collecting on the bottom there. Okay, so let's continue on the bottom here. There's a lot of bits and pieces, so I'm going to be using the cotton wool bud and intermittently use some of this brush care sheet as well. Cotton wool bud just gives me a little bit more control as I'm working with the smaller areas. So you would have seen how murky it was before. I've already cleaned off much of it. Now again, I'm working front to back motion, so it looks like if there's any smearing, it looks like it's aerodynamic smearing. Okay, that's practically the bottom done. Still needs a few bits that I've missed. Certain areas around the engine nozzles. That's okay, I can touch them up later. There's going to be a few other bits and pieces here that needs a little bit of attention. But it looks okay. Now let's just clean up the top a little bit. Just put a little bit of thinner into the sheet again. Okay. Alright, it's looking really good. It's much more contrast now because there's less streaks. Still a bit on this side. So let's just reload this tissue again. Okay, so it's clearing up really nicely. So the really dirty smears are pretty much done. Undercarriage is on, it's permanent. I'll still put a little bit of glue on this one though, because this one's still a little loose. It's just got a little bit of a brass pin in there. So I'll still need something like sprue glue or maybe some a medium CA or super glue to fix that into place. I'll keep going around here though. It's still a little bit murky, and I'll go back to my Q-tip, as it's known in some parts of the world, or a cotton wool bud, as it's known here. Now the feel's quite a bit different. It's more aggressive because it's a harder surface. Using the tissue is a bit more gentle. All right, it's getting there. And with some finer areas, you can get to them with a brush. So just make sure you wipe off as much excess as you can off the brush. And you can use this for getting into these really tight areas. You can do gentle strokes across the surface. And that'll help you get into these really small nooks and crannies. Also helps get into these areas here, which is obscured. Okay, so it's all looking pretty good. All right, so that's pretty much it with cleaning the wash so far. Like I said earlier, I'm going to continue doing it, cleaning off all the excess smears. Still a little bit across here, all over actually. I need to touch up some wash inside the exhaust. There's parts that I've missed on the inside here. Wheels are on. Just need to fix this undercarriage into place because at the moment it's still a bit flexible, but it's not going anywhere because we've glued that on with a nice metal pin. Still have all of this to fit. So we're just dry fitted at the moment. And then once we've cleaned it all up, that's when I do the final assembly of everything else. And next time you see this, it's going to be totally finished. So we'll do some really nice close-ups, give you an idea of how the joins have worked. You'll be able to see wherever the seam lines are, mold lines, like mold lines along here, I've left them in place. They're so fine that you can barely notice them anyway. So there you go. That is part 20 of the Phantom build. It's all come up really well. It's taken a long time. I mean, that also gives you an idea of how long building a kit will take. I mean, that's 20 episodes of 40 minutes to an hour each episode. No paint involved. So if you want a small project that is long term, then there's no problem. You can put these away, bring it out, just as I have. I've had it packed away in this box until it got a bit fragile with all these parts, in which it was living in one of the display cabinets until we worked on it each week. You can see how sharp the details are, all the panel lines, rivets, especially after the wash. And that was the idea of the wash, to bring it all out. That's basically raw plastic with all the details highlighted. So imagine what this will look like with paint as well as all the decals. Fit is impeccable. And if you do choose to build one of these, I'm sure you'll have a great time doing it. Okay, we've got some nice figures. Clear parts are going in the very last. These are struts for supporting the canopies. Okay, so there you go. It's probably a better view of all the canopies on. Wheels are on. Engine intakes are very nice. Look even better once I get all the wash in them. And the bottom with all the stores. That's it. Okay, so thanks again for watching. It's been a long stint. Still building a GP F1 car, 3D printed one, which is made by Andy Cook. That's almost done as well. We'll get into painting all the body as well. So with this Phantom build, it's the end of the story. So next time around when you come to have a look out for the, I guess we'll call it a walk around tour of the finished product. Get to see some close-ups and such. So thanks again for joining me. It's been really enjoyable. It's been great having you around, and hopefully you've learned some techniques. Haven't used a lot, although there have been certain techniques such as repair work, things that can happen when you're building a model, and also some of the tricks, because building a model is, I think, one of the great things about it is it's a challenge to build. It's a challenge to get right, but to me it helped that in that all the parts fit really well and the engineering is impeccable. So there we go again. The Tamiya 148 scale Phantom F-4B in its beautiful built state. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time around.